Okay, well, thank you for joining today. This is the inaugural first kickoff for Smart Women Global Partnership and their energy controller. And this is the introduction webinar for new partners and distributors. Today we'll be covering the world energy crisis and presenting why energy uh, efficiency and energy growth is very important in what we do today, along with the Smart Woman Global Partner idea, the energy controller, and our different testing methods and the products that come along with that. So, the world energy crisis, next to economy, energy is the biggest concern to most citizens. To save money while conserving natural resources and protecting the environment. National leaders and business leaders, they're always looking for innovative ways to reduce energy consumption, your carbon footprint, and developing more efficient methods of power distribution and utilization. Electricity demand will increase considerably over the next several years based on the growth of the economy and globalization and people being able to plug in more devices inside of their home and inside of their business, such as your phones and computers and things like this. And through intensive energy conservation efforts at the largest 50 plus industrial commercial clients could save up to 40% of the power on the grid, which is quite impressive when you think about just 50 customers. And that's equivalent to building 2 large-scale energy plants. Energy saving projects could minimize or eliminate blackouts, reduce electric costs, and increase worker and employer productivity, a benefit to both the power company and businesses today. Luckily, in the United States, we don't typically have to deal with blackouts, but in many countries throughout the developing world and even in Europe, parts of Europe and Asia, blackouts can be a serious problem. So this is an important topic for this webinar is why this SWG or Smart Women Global Partners. The buzzwords of today are smart, green, women and men, and how that equals a powerful opportunity. SWG has been incorporated in America to empower smart women and men with global partnership opportunities in renewable energy and green technology and in energy efficiency. The units are available worldwide and are made in America um, with technology partners in the UK and um, popping up throughout the world as we speak. Um, our SWG's partners is unique. We are basically dealers and authorized by the patent holders to manufacture to use the patented sizing equipment required to raise the power factor to unity. We offer the best training and technical support available and custom solutions for your customers. SWG partners work directly with the manufacturer. So with the partnership options today, there are 2 options. One is partner one with his distribution only. There's no training or installation required. And partnership number 2 is distribution and installation. The training's for electrical or HVAC state licensed contractors only. It's very important that that we're training people who are licensed and insured that are properly doing the technical trades that are required with this technology. One thing that we want to express is that this is not a multi-level marketing opportunity or a network marketing opportunity. This is a direct marketing opportunity. So you can benefit and, of course, bring people to the table, but this is not at all where you have pipelines, downlines, uplines, or any of the kind of logo. It's a direct marketing opportunity. So the topic of discussion, the product is the SWG Partners is our energy controller. Energy controllers are custom-sized power factor optimization devices for individual motor loads. These energy controllers are designed to fit when it is impractical to optimize motors individually. There are currently over 62 pre-engineered 3-phase models, and there are 31 single-phase models. Additionally, there are several panel mount units that are designed for residential and small commercial electrical panels and services. Some of the features are that they are an NEMA 3R enclosure. That basically means that they're indoor-outdoor use. They're wind, dust-proof, rain-resistant. We're good in up to very high degree temperatures, up to basically 90 degrees centigrade. and well below 30 degrees, negative minus 30 degrees centigrade. Each of these products that come in the commercial environment are independently fused phase to phase. They have blow and fuse indicator lights to let us know that they're operating properly. The knockouts are tailored to basically whatever can fit compatibly with the existing infrastructure. All of our products are UL listed, which is very important. Underwriters Laboratories make sure that all the products are very safe and that any licensed electrician will install it in the United States and through most territories throughout the world. The CSA standard is for Canadian Standard Association and basically is the governing body, simply very like the UL in the United States. All of our products as well are ROHS compliant. It's a restrictions of hazardous substances. This allows for the product to go freely in a lot of different markets, such as hospitals, schools, and also means keeps people safe and warm feeling. There's no petroleum products like PCBs in the capacitors or in the technology, or zinc, lead, boride, mercury, or anything that's hazardous to the environment. It can basically go into a landfill and we would be okay. Nothing would leak into our water source or anything like that. The products are also available with CE requirements as well for the European community, some in South America and some in Asia as well. The performance of the energy controller results in more efficient performance of motors due to a higher constant voltage level with no voltage drops. We optimize the power factor significantly. When we bring the power factor up, we reduce the amps going through the system, and with this in return reduces the I squared R losses, or amp squared times resistance. This allows for there to be lower line currents or amperage and decreases the losses throughout the building electrical distribution system, and in return reduces your energy bill. Less energy is wasted as heat and windage losses. That basically means that your motors are going to run longer because they're running cooler. Heat is basically an enemy for any electrical component and motor throughout the world. It decreases the life expectancy and basically maintains a higher frequency of maintenance when there's more heat in a motor. The energy controller is a custom sized capacitor bank. Basically, this means that we have a sizing process. We can do an analysis in real time where we actually can introduce technology, and we listen and watch the impact based on a power quality reading. So we have a before and after. This allows us to determine the best solution for each individual apparatus or for a distribution center. This allows us to typically optimize the system, is a term we like to use. These energy controllers can be installed at an electrical service or entry panel, or directly at the panel of heavy motor loads. Basically, we can go at the line side of a disconnect or at the load side of a contactor. This reduces the energy consumption for inductive loads such as motors, air conditioners, condensers, chillers, air handlers, refrigerators, fans, blowers, pumps. If you're pushing or pulling anything, it's typically used with a motor, and we operate on alternating current or AC motors, inductive loads. The way that we reduce the energy consumption is that we supply a component of energy called the reactive power to the inductive load. That reactive power allows for the shaft inside of the motor to spin freely from inside of the windings, and allows for the motor to perform its work without pulling extra current or amperage through the system. So what this typically results in is a reduction of kilowatts. Basically, we're charged and billed in kilowatt hours, and we look at our reduction in energy consumption on successful terms of anywhere from 6 to 25%. I know it's a very large range, but each individual infrastructure and motor is different, and thus the results are typically going to be different from application to application. But we do have a rapid return on investment, sometimes in less than 1 year, and typically nothing longer than 36 months. That's always guaranteed with our products. And when combined with other technologies such as solar technology or wind or geothermal or different lighting technologies and renewable and energy efficiency products, we can accelerate the paybacks. basically because we're creating more efficiency in the system that was there before these technologies were introduced. Some of the specifications of the products, okay? So we can operate up to 600 volts on AC service or alternating current services, 50 to 60 hertz, which is the um, primary operation of cycles throughout the world. In the US, it's 60 hertz, and through North and South America, it's 60 hertz. And um, then in other territories, it's 50 hertz. So our products can operate in both of those. Where all of our capacitors are protected up to a 10,000 alternating fault current protection. That basically means if there's a crazy surge that brings a lot of energy into the system, the capacitors are self-healing up to this degree. And again, the operating temperatures of these capacitors and their specifications are minus 40 centigrade to positive 90 centigrade. Again, in an NEMA 3R enclosure that's suitable for indoor and outdoor use. The box sizes range from an 8x8 box to a 10x12x6 box. All of our fuses are based on the National Electric Code. They're dual element time delay fuse. Basically, any motor should have a time delay fuse. UL listed, CSA listed, ROHS compliant, and again, no PCBs, no petroleum chloride products or anything like that. And we can also customize the enclosures based on the application. So if a higher integrity rating is necessary, such as going into a hazardous environment where there might be magnesium or flammable products or methane or anything like that, we can upgrade the enclosure to fit into the application that's necessary for the project. And we'll go through some more benefits, and we already discussed the reduction of kilowatt, typically from a minimum of 6% and up to about 25% for individual motor loads. We reduce the demand charges as well. So not only do we reduce the kilowatt per hour, but we reduce the kW, which is very helpful for especially larger commercial customers. And where basically utilities can apply charges to serve facilities peak load, and by optimizing the power factor as close to unity as possible, our peak load is going to be reduced, and it's going to result in further savings. By reducing power losses in the distribution system, we do this by supplying reactive current locally, basically as close to the motors as possible or through the distribution network. And we try to eliminate as much as the kVAR being supplied by the utility or as much as the reactive power supplied by the utility. And so it's local source that results in a reduction of the I squared R losses as we talked about before. It also typically results in a greater starting torque for your motors. So you're going to actually get the motors up to their operation duties at a faster rate. They'll do their jobs a little bit quicker. So if you're pushing water, the water will go a little bit quicker on that starting point. And if you're pushing air in an air conditioner, it typically will get to that cooling point slightly faster than without a capacitor close by. We improve the voltage regulation due to reducing the line voltage. We typically reduce that drastically. This directly results in more efficient performance of our motors, meaning less energy turned into heat in the windings of the motors, which means cooler running motors that last longer and require less maintenance. So again, it's really stress importance that if we just reduce a core temperature of a motor by less than a half of a degree, we're typically going to increase that life expectancy of that motor for several months, if not years. And maintenance and downtime and in your house, even if you lose an air conditioner, it's not just a pain in the butt, it's very expensive and can make you very uncomfortable for a day or two or longer. We decrease the customer's carbon footprint. So this can be very important when discussing people, when you're concerned about the environment. Typically there's a good number that goes out there. If you reduce 1 kilowatt consumption per hour, you are reducing 2.25 pounds of carbon being produced and excluded into the atmosphere if the power is coming from a coal-powered power plant. And again, we have a rapid return on investment, 36 months or less, and it's typically on average going to be 8 to 24 months. The more you consume, the faster the return on investment will be. We have our warranty product, basically unconditional product replacement, okay? For commercial and industrial energy controllers, it's going to be 5 years. On residential, it's actually 12 years. All of our products are built to a life expectancy standard of 25 years. Okay, so we really don't expect for these products to ever fail in the field. They have zero moving parts. The components inside of them have very little resistance. So when electricity and voltage travel through them, there's very little heat buildup. And again, as we were talking earlier, when we reduce heat in motors, we reduce likelihood of failure. So the fact that these energy controllers have very little heat for the amount of energy that goes through them, that means that they're going to last for a very long time. So if we look here, this is a typical layout of, we see an electric meter where all the voltage comes in from the utility. Typically it'll go through a distribution panel. You can relate this to your house, or if you're at a business, a motor control center or a large feeder system. Then that electricity travels through the network and goes to some sort of load. Right here we're looking at an inductive load or a motor. That could go to lights, that could go to your air conditioner, can go to compressors, but when we're talking about our energy controllers, we're going to be affecting the motor loads only. Okay, if you take a look at the green line, okay, this is what we call the working current, okay, or working power. This is necessary for the load to perform its duty. So for a light to turn on, an incandescent light bulb, it requires working power. For the motor to produce horsepower, to do its duty, it requires this working power. What we have here underneath the bottom is non-working current or apparent power. This apparent power is supplied through the utility as well, typically, okay? And that's used by inductive loads, motors, such as your air conditioner, compressors, pumps, things of that nature. And what we try to do is we supply as much as that working current as possible locally with this capacitor bank. So when we supply as much locally as possible, we reduce the total volume of current or amperage going through the system. And so we're going to reduce the volume coming through the utility meter, going through the entire distribution network, and supply it locally. That's going to increase many factors that are going to reduce your energy bill. It's going to increase motor performance, and we don't impact the motor itself, okay? The motor is still going to produce the same amount of work that it was producing before. We don't supply the motor less amperage or current than we did before because we're supplying a portion of this current locally. So it's very important when explaining this product that your air conditioner is going to get just as cold, okay? It's gonna do what it was doing before. We're not going to slow anything down by supplying less voltage or supplying less amperage to those motors. We're just going to supply a portion of that locally that's not going to come from the utility, and it's going to travel through less of the electrical system. So when we supply at a motor, the energy controller, when we're working at a motor, we do this in accordance to Article 460 of the National Electric Code of the U.S. Basically, we install it neatly next to your motor on the load side of the motor's contactor or starter switch. This allows the motor the unit to switch on and off with the motor load, and that's going to supply the best level of savings possible. This is a typical residential look at an installation, and these are the tools that we can use to identify the proper unit for each home. Okay, so if we look on the right-hand side, this is a typical layout of a breaker panel with the main disconnect right here at 200 amps, and we see here some 20 amp breakers, 50 amp breakers, and such. When we install the energy controller, we're using a 2-pole 20 amp breaker. So it's a 220 volt 20 amp breaker where 2 red hot leads go into each of these phases. So it's going to be wired in parallel across both legs because it's in parallel on this whole panel. Everything that's serviced from this panel will be supplied a portion of their reactive current or energy locally from this energy controller. And what we have here is an ID1, what we call a panel unit identifier. This item, along with a simple clamp-on power quality meter, is going to allow us to perform a procedure to identify the best solution for each of these applications. This is something that's kind of unique to SWG and our partners. This allows us to do an on-site analysis in real time. It's not always necessary, but it's a nice tool to have, especially if we're working door to door, because the customer can see exactly what's happening through a typical installation and see the power factor before, see it afterwards, see the amperage before, see it afterwards, and it's always good to see results. So we're going to reduce the amp draw. We're going to reduce the heat traveling through the system. That means that there's going to be less losses and the motors are going to last longer. And we're going to reduce the consumption by a minimum of 6%. Over a period of time, that 6% can add up dramatically. Okay, again, these products, when they're installed residentially, have a 12-year manufacturer warranty and a 25-year life expectancy. So for the cost of the product, I don't think there's really an investment that you could do at a local bank that's going to pay us anything near 6%. I think my savings account might pay me something like a 0.04% at this point. So um, it's a good sound place for an investment, and you're going to get a lower energy bill. You're going to do a good thing for the environment. You're going to increase the life expectancy of your appliances as well. So these are some typical off-the-shelf products that we have here. When you see the PU in front of the unit, we use that acronym for panel unit. And then we see the 1200, that's a panel unit, single phase, 200 amp box. This is a panel unit 1400, PU 1400, so single phase, 400 amp box. And then we look at the three-phase products. These are typically for a light commercial environment. We'll be servicing at the panel. So we have a panel unit 3100 or three-phase 100 amp box, three-phase 200 amp box, and three-phase 400 amp box. There are procedures that we like to use to determine these placement of these products properly, and we can do different tutorials to teach how people to go through an analysis through verbalization and as well through the technical needs for the qualified certified electricians and HVAC workers. These are some of our patented items. We hold a U.S. utility patent, and what these items allow us to do in conjunction with a power quality meter is to determine exactly what's required to optimize the power factor for an individual load or for an entire service. Each one of these US boxes, we have a US number 1 here, that's for single phase, up to 240 volts, US number 3 for 3-phase, and US number 2 for 3-phase. Each of these items have 5 binary switches. In the sequence of those binary switches, that allows for 31 capabilities. And I guess if you consider off as a different combination, then it has 32 for each. So these are our different power quality meters that we use through our procedures. Typically, our handheld power quality meter is what we use and sufficient for single phase applications when we're working at a panel at a home or at a small business. This is a necessary tool for determining what the proper unit is when we're going through our documented procedures of analysis. When we go into more commercial environments and we're working in 3-phase power, and it's essential when we are working at individual motors. This is a 3-phase data logger and harmonics analyzer. This allows for us to read all 3 phases in real time and look at many characteristics such as the kW, of course, amperage, power factor, harmonics. We look at the sine wave, the distortion of the system. We can get into very technical requirements to see exactly how a motor is consuming power. And when we supply our technology in real time, we're able to locate the sweet spot of consumption for that system or that individual load. This is something that's very unique. We're the only people in the world that can do this. And it allows for us to really capture the greatest savings possible and really allows us to go into environments that people were not able to go into 10, 15 years ago because they were scared. Basically, from a low power factor standpoint, when you start applying capacitors, you can see anomalies happen, and we are allowed to see those anomalies happen in real time. So it's really unique. It's again, it gives us special priority when working in any sort of environment and trying to maximize energy savings. We also offer some demonstration equipment. What we see here on the right-hand side is a suitcase that closes up. It's a hard plastic Nanook type suitcase that has a kWh meter to help us relate to each of the customers we're going to show our items to. Up here we have a digital meter that gives a digital analysis of what is happening on the incoming line or power supply to the demonstration kit. And we have a motor. It's about a 3rd horsepower Dayton motor and an energy controller. These items are very unique because they allow us to demonstrate what happens from the load side of the energy controller between the motor and the energy controller itself, where we're able to demonstrate that nothing changes. So the motor's still going to do its proper duty. We're not going to reduce the amount of amps that the motor sees or differentiate the voltage at all, but we're also going to be able to see what's happening on the incoming power line. So if we take a look at these demonstration boards here on the right-hand side, which is better for like a trade show environment, or if you're going to a homeowners association or to a large presentation, you're able to really visualize what happens. And we have these different test points where we're able to show again that we don't change what happens at the motor. We change everything that happens on the incoming line, and we can see the reduction in kilowatts with this nice plug-in meter up here, the reduction in amperage, the improvement in power factor, and very good for hands-on presentation, especially if you're going to be in front of customers rather than on the phone or a webinar. Here we see a typical commercial installation. As you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different energy controllers here. The reason those are necessary is because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 compressors here. And it's obvious from looking at this installation, that these compressors turn on and off in different times. So they don't just typically don't come on all at one time. They're going to be coming in some sort of sequence that's going to be based on demand. Each one of these energy controllers is supplying the reactive component necessary for the windings, for the shaft to spin freely in the winding. So it's not pulling through the utility. When we go into environments like this in these large compressor areas, savings is going to be very rapid for the return on investment. I don't have the case study in front of me on this one, but I'm going to expect to see something in much less than 18 months. And if you look at and make sure that each of these fuses, each of these products is fused independently, phase to phase. They each have blown fuse indicator lights on them. So if something is wrong with the product, a light is going to come on and indicate that something has to be fixed. Typically, it's going to be a fuse. It's a little more complicated process right here. This looks like it going to a large motor control center that's servicing many motors. These are slightly larger energy controllers here. Again, capacitors on one side and fuses on the other with blown fuse indicators. And this is really a quite large installation right here. This is a panel unit solution for a 3-phase panel. We're basically supplying the reactive component, and we're using a nice conduit. We have a nice clean installation that goes into this panel service, apparently much cleaner than the rest of the electrical service that was coming in before we got there. And this is a typical installation for your home. I'm going to assume that this one is happening actually in Arizona, because in Arizona I always notice that the main service panel for a home is right next to your kilowatt meter. We typically do not install next to the kWh meter. We install next to where the main service is at. So if you have a service panel in your garage, that's where the installation would happen, not necessarily right next to the kWh meter. Here we go. We have a training facility. The facilities are going to be opening up in New Jersey, where we're doing classroom environment, training on sales presentation, and hopefully some technical training there as well. As you can see, there's going to be flat screen TVs. We've got the demonstration kits up there for everybody to look at and for everybody to get hands on. It should be very good. We've always enjoyed our trainings, and typically we're going to be seeing, I guess, anywhere from 8 to 24, but I guess I've got to see the facility up in New Jersey soon. Here are some suggested markets for our energy controllers. So we definitely think that most homes in the U.S. could definitely benefit from using our energy controller. There's farms, commercial and industrial facilities, religious and nonprofit organizations such as churches, synagogues, and mosques. Green energy systems, where people are already familiar with using solar or geothermal or wind turbine technologies. They're going to be more aware, and they're going to greatly benefit from our technology for a rapid return on investment. The chambers of commerce, your local chamber of commerce, not just itself, but will be a good connection for local contacting businesses and becoming a member, and through networking through that center, through that chamber of commerce, excuse me. Distribution centers, I guess, for cold storage and dry storage. Basically, they've got to move a lot of air all the time. Typically, are going to be temperature controlled. Homeowners associations are a great place to make presentations to many people at one time. I think that the more people that you get comfortable talking in front of and showing those demonstration kits to are going to be a great help to any sort of marketing you're going to do with this product. Builders associations. We always recommend being members of any association where you can get in front of and talk to electricians, HVAC contractors, or developers about the opportunities of this product and the benefits to their customers that they can provide. Suggested fundraising for profit centers. Okay, so the green fundraiser is a perpetual profit center. As your organization builds a profit center, expansion is unlimited. The green fundraiser. Your client saves money and your organization builds a profit center. And please look at our website for more details. And here's some contact information for Ms. Scott and Pastor Robinson.